Hello, everyone, and welcome to the UCBO Fiscal Transfer Request demo. This has to do with moving your money to different COAs or moving your expenses to different COAs. First, we'll go over the policy and terms. So there are three different types of fiscal transfers. We have fund resource transfer, a cost PPM transfer, and a salary cost transfer. A fund resource transfer refers to a fund allocation, so money or an award, that is given to another department. And this is not associated with specific expenses. So some examples of this would be the TWOW funding for years 24-25, providing funding for tables at a resource center event. Think of this as money that is given before an event happens or money that is given for one event, not one specific expense for that event. Moving on to cost PPM transfers, these are specific expenses that are moved from one COA to another after they have been recorded in the operating ledger. So some examples of this would be the NSTW funding for years 24-25, or dividing one cost among different COAs. Or if you notice that a wrong COA was accidentally used, we can move that cost to a different COA. So again, these are specific expenses that are moved after they have been made and after they have been recorded in the ledger. And finally, we have the salary cost transfers. These are specific salary expenses that are moved from one COA to another after they have been recorded in the ledger. So some examples of this would be moving the teaching assistants July 25 to September 25 pay from their regular COA to a specific stipend, or moving all peer advisor pay from the student affairs COA to the provost operating COA, or moving one academic advisor from the default COA to the provost operating COA. Some important notes for fund transfers. Fund transfers can only occur between two COAs with the same fund number. So if your department is purchasing a table or providing funding support to another non-college department, you will need to gather the COA information from the other department before submitting the form and ensure the fund number that you're sending the money to matches the fund number of the COA you're sending money from. If the other department has any questions, feel free to connect Rachel with the other department. And you will also need to attach a copy of the funding support documentation in the ticket. Typically, this will be an email confirmation. So again, just to drive that point home, fund transfers can only occur between two COAs with the same fund number. This is because each funds have their own restrictions in purchasing. So transferring between the same funds eliminates the risk of accidentally purchasing items with a restricted fund. Next, we'll move on to the cost splitting mentality. If you're planning in advance to split expenses for any type of event, meeting, or program, we recommend that you do not use the fiscal transfer form. Instead, we can allocate the amounts to various COAs in your UCBO receipt forms. So you'll go ahead and put in all the COAs that you want, and in Concur, we can allocate the expenses accordingly. And this recommendation is because every time we perform a cost transfer, it becomes a higher risk transaction. So moving expenses creates an additional step or pathway to get to the original source of that information. And having too many unnecessary cost transfers is a red flag to external auditors. So to split COAs in our tickets, you'll go ahead and enter the first project that you want, and then you'll add another row or add and enter in the other COAs that you would like. So for example, Rachel spends $70 at Amazon for an all-campus Welcome Week event. When she submits her receipts, she will input the project and task of the first COA and the amount that she'd like to charge. Then she'll click Add Another to input the second project and task, and she will need to add new rows for each individual COA she will be charging to split the $70. Example 2. Student council decides to provide Residence Life with $100 to spend on their program. No fund transfers have been made. So in this case, the COA allocation will happen when the receipt is reconciled. You may decide internally who submits the receipt for this case, either the dean's office or Residence Life, but the student council COA should be used when the receipts for the $100 is submitted. Example 3. IRCA, HDH, and Provost provides you with funding for an event. They are fine with you charging expenses directly to their COA and provide the COA to use. So just like the previous example, you will submit your UCBO forms ticket with the COA provided and the email confirmation allowing the use of the COA. If it is a non-college COA, you'll need to ask your contact who their financial unit approver is, and if they have a specific expenditure code that they would like used. You'll provide all this information with your business purpose when submitting your tickets to the UCBO. Next, we'll move on to when to submit. We have 3 different scenarios of when you should be submitting tickets. First, if UCBO Fiscal needs to perform an action, you will use the fiscal transfer form. The exception to this is for Student Life Business Office Awards, where UCBO needs to complete an Excel file. You will submit that through an Ask Fiscal ticket. In scenario 2, if another department is performing the action, you will notify UCBO Fiscal with the email thread through an Ask Fiscal ticket. In scenario 3, if you notice your student's salary expenses were charged the wrong COA, you will use the fiscal transfer form with a transaction type salary cost transfer. The reason why we ask you to submit tickets for any type of requests or inquiries is because it is our preferred way to receive any type of correspondence. Most importantly, the ticketing system allows us to track multiple status metrics. It compiles all information in one place, and we can easily take over cases for other team members when they're out. And most importantly, it ensures that your questions aren't lost in a sea of automated notifications. This is especially true for any type of fiscal transfer tickets because they can have a very long time span. Next, we'll move on to logging in and completing the tickets. First, you'll navigate to the UCBO Get Help page. On the Get Help page, you'll scroll down to the Fiscal portion and click on the Fiscal Transfer Request, and you will be redirected to QualiBuild. As you're redirected, you will be asked to sign in using Active Directory Single Sign-On. Ticket should say Fiscal Transfer, and you will select the UCBO as the business office that will process the request. You'll input your unit, and here you'll select the transaction type. For the fund transfer ticket, you will need to put in the business purpose, the total amount of funds that you want to give. You can leave the original transaction date blank because it's not tied to a specific transaction. And you'll also want to put in the other unit fiscal contact. Next, you'll put in the COA information, and again, the COAs must have matching fund numbers. And you will also need to put in the project numbers. Moving on to cost transfer ticket demo. Again, you'll want to put in the business purpose. You'll want to be as specific as possible. In the from accounts, you will put in where the expenses are currently charged to. In the to accounts, you'll input where you want the expenses to end up and the associated amounts per COA. Finally, we'll move on to the salary cost transfer ticket demo. Now, salary cost transfer will require a little bit more information. First, you'll put in the employee name, so whose expenses are we actually moving? The employee ID will auto-populate. Next, you'll input the pay period end date, basically the date range of how they should be paid. The pay amount, you can leave blank unless the pay is being split. If you are splitting the pay, you will use the salary from the salary grouped total on your DOPE report. You'll input the business purpose for the payroll transfer. Next, you'll put in the frequency. Most scenarios should be permanent, but there may be some times where we have a one-time or other frequency. An example of a one-time cost transfer would be moving a performance agreement payment. Other would be paying with a specific COA for 1 year. Next, you'll put in the from accounts, which is where you'll put in the COA that the costs are currently on. Then you'll put in the to accounts, the new COA that the cost should move to. And finally, in the comments, you will need to input the position number and any other relevant information regarding this cost transfer. And just like the salary cost transfer, a fund transfer and a PPM cost transfer will have this comment and file upload section at the bottom of the ticket. When you submit your tickets, you should get an email confirmation saying that your ticket has been created. To view your newly created ticket, you'll go to support.ucsc.edu, click on My Stuff, Tickets, and click on that relevant ticket. Next, we'll move on to processing. The basic timeline for fiscal transfer requests is as follows. The college employee will submit the ticket. Within 1 business week, UCBO will assess what needs to be done and approximates a time frame. Then at the end of the month, quarter, or the designated deadline, UCBO will perform the actions needed. After the actions are completed, UCBO will propose a solution on your request. If we ever need to ask for more information on this type of ticket, we will not use the automatic ticket closure function. The reason why fiscal transfer tickets can have such a variation in their processing is because it goes through multiple departments through collaboration. First, the college submits the request, UCBO processes it, it's reviewed at IPPS, and then it's confirmed by the other department. So in these matters, we truly appreciate your assistance and patience when we process these requests. If you need any help with fiscal transfers, we first ask that you check Confluence. If it's on Confluence and you have further questions, please submit an Ask Fiscal ticket. If the information is not on Confluence, but there are office hours coming up, please attend office hours. If there are no office hours coming up, please submit an Ask Fiscal ticket. Our current office hours schedule is Tuesdays from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. These are dedicated for P-card questions. And we also have Thursdays from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. These are general, so you can come with any type of question. Please check Confluence for Zoom links and the most up-to-date office hours schedule. And that brings us to the end of the fiscal transfer ticket demo. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out.